Hi there, my name is Matthew Lord, and this is the first video in a series about Airsoft in the UK. And I'm going to be covering the do's and don'ts and some of the legal sides to things, and my recommendations for certain things like what you should purchase, when, and how you should probably purchase it. So we'll start off with the purchase of Airsoft guns, because if you're watching this video, either you're looking to get into Airsoft and so you want to know how you're going to buy stuff, or you're already looking to buy your first gun and you want to look into it. If you haven't been airsofting yet and you're watching this video, first step is to go airsofting, especially if you're in the UK, because that's one of the major things anyway. Preferably with a friend who also either wants to or already does. Anyway, I digress. So, the legal side. Regarding the law for purchase of something like this, an RAF, you have to have a defence, which there are quite a few, but in the event of Airsoft, you have to prove that you are a regular Airsoft skirmisher. Therefore, you need to be regularly going Airsoft. The general consensus is 3 times within the space of 2 months. And as Airsoft is generally held 1 day a week in most sites, it will probably be a case that takes you over 3 weeks at least, and can take you all 8 if you're like me and don't have that much money most of the time. Anyway, you also have to be over the age of 18 to be able to purchase a RIF or a IF. Now, RIF stands for Realistic Imitation Firearm, meanwhile IF just means Imitation Firearm. Basically that means the firearm part is that it still is capable of firing a projectile. In these cases they're plastic BBs for Airsoft, usually around about 0.2 grams, which is, you know, what you would normally find in the case of Airsoft. So the easiest way to be able to purchase an Airsoft rifle in the UK is to get onto the UCARA database. It's not a legal requirement though, but it's the easiest way. All it requires you is to go to a Airsoft site that's registered with a UCARA shop, like Ground Zero with 01, and some other sites as well. I'm sure there are quite a few. And once you've registered with them, then obviously you go 3 times in the space of 2 months, and then at the end of the 2 months you'll be able to purchase RAFs online. Some sites will allow you to purchase them from their distributors as soon as you've applied to be a member of their site, and for UCARA that's their discretion. But as it goes, if you're over the age of 18 you can legally purchase one. If you're under the age of 18, the only way you can legally own an RAF or an IF is to have it be purchased for you by someone over the age of 18 who also has a defence, and give it to you as a gift. Now, what defines the difference between an RAF and an IF? An RAF looks like the real thing, basically. So, like this M4 for example, really does look like an M4. I mean, apart from the stickers. And when you look closely, the markings on it are that of the company that made it, not the real deal. Meanwhile, an IF will take one of the main colours of the one of the main parts and main colours of the rifle and change it from the realistic colours like black and replace it with something that's very bright, like fluorescent green or baby blue, baby pink, that kind of colour. Now, I said that that's the easiest way to purchase them. Another way you can, which doesn't require UCARA, is to have one imported from overseas, and then the requirement is that you have to have your details on the packaging to allow the customs, in the event that they check the package, because obviously it's a gun, to check out that you are legally allowed to purchase the rifle. That's the purchasing out of the way, I think. Yeah, that's it. Now, just because you own one of these doesn't mean you can carry it around with you all the time without people getting suspicious. Basically, this is the common sense part where I say don't walk around town with this in your hands like this, because you're going to get shot by the police. However, the box that they normally come in is usually fine for carrying around short distances, like to your car, if your car is out like in the front garden, the front of your house, or getting out at your airsoft site, near your airsoft site, to take it on to the site. As long as it's in the box, it's fine. When you're taking it on public transport though, you need to use a proper lock gun case, like this one here. And you can see it's got locks on the front and a combination lock. Now, the combination lock isn't the important part, it's these locks here. As long as you've got locks that you can either padlock, or you have the keys that you can lock it properly on, like these, and you can't lift the corners and touch the firearm on the inside, then the box is fine for public transport. Of course, when you're taking it on public transport, especially on things like planes and that, which wouldn't recommend anyway, but if you are, you have to cool them. You have to cool planes, especially. Don't know about other forms of public transport, but you got to cool them 24 hours in advance to say, look, you have to cool them 24 hours in advance to let them know that you are carrying a realistic imitation firearm, and use those exact words. Don't say RAF, don't say gun, airsoft gun, because that will definitely cause them to freak out. Realistic imitation firearm will still cause them to freak out, but you have to call them before you make the booking, basically. And then when they turn up, when you turn up to go for it, you can then say, look, I spoke to this such and such person, and I said that I was bringing this, and here it is. And then, generally speaking, you should be able to have them check the box that it's in to make sure that it's a legal box for you to use, which, if you've got one like this, always will be. then you should be able to take it anywhere in the world where it's legal to have these sorts of firearms. So now that we've got all of the legalities out of the way, let's talk about recommendations for your first purchase. The first gun I will always recommend, which is the one to my right here. Well, the style of the one to my right here is an M4. This is a G&G, I think it was a GR4 CQBS, mostly because of the suppressor. It didn't come with the sight, but it also didn't come with a front sight. However, it also came with a foregrip guard, which I've taken off to put on another gun, as this one currently is broken, which I will get it fixed. But generally speaking, I would say if you can afford it, go for a G&G. If you really can't afford it, go for a Tokyo Marui, as those will always work. But the reason I say go for an M4 is because every company that makes airsoft guns makes a variant of an M4 or an M16, and that means there are loads of parts and there are loads of peripherals that are available to put on these. You can see I've got the rail covers here, which also came with the gun, but I've got this ACOG style red dot sight on here. This is an aftermarket part that I've bought to put on here. Now, I don't actually like this scope, which is why one of the reasons why I've stopped using this gun entirely anyway. But it looks good on the gun, I have to admit. Also, this is where the battery compartment is on this one. The other ones can be in the front, the rear. Anyway, because there is plenty of parts and plenty of availability for this style of gun, I would always say pick something like this for your first gun. However, there are a couple of other options for you for the best recommendations for most people on from Airsoft, and those are the AK-47, well, not the AK-47, but the AK series of guns, so the AK-47, the AK-74, and then the more modern variants like the AK-102. The reason that the AK series of guns are popular is because of basically they're iconic. Therefore, again, pretty much every company that makes airsoft firearms make an AK of some description. G&G make AKMs, AK-74s, and the AK-102s, 103s, you know, those ones, the more modern style ones. The only issues with AKs is because, especially if you go for the ones that are old designs like the AKMs and the AK-74s, because they were made back in like 1947, 1974, the original design that is, you won't find that they're as modular as something like the M4 or the MP5, which I'll talk about later. They suffer from the fact that you need to have additional parts to be able to put on sights. That's not necessarily a problem for when you're first purchasing, because you might like the AK iron sights, or you might find it preferential to use like the AK just for hip firing and that. It's perfectly alright to have that, and there are other parts available to put your favourite red dot sight in a better position for yourself, rather than at the fore end, which the more modern ones would have, because the modern ones have the rails but only on the foregrip. So then your sight will be sort of down here rather than back here. But again, that's not necessarily a problem if you like it that way. So, you know, hats off to you if you do. I personally don't, but then I'm also buying an AK at some point in my life, so I can't really say that I'm gonna have a problem with that. Then there's the MP5, which again also suffers mostly with the lack of rail space, especially on the top, for things like sights and that. Again, if you like the sights on an MP5, then you should always use what's cheapest for you. But if you want to get better sight picture, or use something like a red dot sight or a holographic or something, generally speaking you have to buy an aftermarket part, which are available for all of the H&K style guns from back in the day, as I would say. And so you can put your sights on there as well. Another issue that the MP5 has though is capacity. Now if you're going to places with real capacity or low capacity magazines, then you should be fine, because generally speaking they'll be around about the same as the M4s and the AKs, especially if you're going for real caps, and they definitely will. If you're going for high capacity magazines, the MP5 suffers with having, generally speaking, around about 250 round capacity. This M4 style magazine, high cap, has 450 rounds. That's almost half of the capacity from the MP5. Now granted, they are much smaller magazines, so you can carry more of them on you at any time anyway, which makes it a better choice for Airsoft. If you're going for like a light rushing sort of style, or going for just going for a lighter kit altogether, then you know it should be fine, because you've got the lighter gun, and if you're rushing around a lot trying to get in close, you might not be using as many bullets, and if you are using more bullets, you'll just have to reload a lot, which in the short term could get you taken out by someone who's, say, round the corner, and you're in the middle of reloading, he comes around and shoots you. But at the same time, that's sort of the game, really. So in the event that happens, you shouldn't really be that upset about it. Anyway, there are a few other examples of sort of good rifles to go with. Basically anything that uses M4 magazines and M4 parts. So I'll name three off the top of my head, which would be the Scar L, the M416 and the ACR. The problem with the ACR is it's going to be really expensive. There's only two companies that make it, and one of them is Magpul PTS, and those are about £500 each. Then the M416, the only company I know of that makes it is G&G, and it's just an M4 with HK markings on it, really. And the Scar L, there's a couple of companies that make it. There's a couple of companies that make the Scar H as well. But generally speaking, if you can get those with a company that makes sort of the mid-range or cheaper end, then by all means go for those if you like those styles of rifle. Now let's have an example of a poor choice for a starting rifle. This is the Galil ARM. Granted, it's a brilliant rifle. Absolutely most fun you can have. I just realised I put this on wrong. I bought this for a friend of mine for his first rifle. And at the time that I bought it, it was purely because he absolutely loved this gun in Call of Duty Black Ops. Now, if you can find the parts for this, then by all means buy it. It is a brilliant looking rifle, but the one reason why it's a bad example of a starting rifle is this. Yes, these kind of look the same as M4 mags. Slightly more elongated, and it's more of a curve rather than a jut, really. But the main problem is this lip bit here. You see, because as the Galil is based on the AK, the magazines lock in, and so that means you can't use a normal 5.56 magazine to put in it. Now, there are ways around this. You can get adapters that allow you to put I do believe it's AK-74 mags and AK-74 drum mags into this gun adapters, because let's be honest, a lot of companies make a lot of money from making those sorts of parts for the more esoteric type of rifles like this. So you've got obviously adapters for down here, and adapters to put sights on here. Granted, this actually doesn't have too good sights either, because normally you would find a rack along this side here for you to put an optic on the top, but because the Galil ones have iron sights all the way back here, unlike the AK that it's based on, which has its iron sights but all the way at the front here, you'll find that it wouldn't fit anyway. However, just because of those problems doesn't mean you shouldn't buy something like this for your first rifle. It's just not recommended because of these issues. Now, another set of examples for bad first choice of rifles would be sniper rifles. You know, like bolt action sniper rifles. The PSG-1, even though it's an electric rifle, it has a small capacity magazine. Pretty much no company makes it apart from Tokyo Marine, which makes it already an expensive rifle to begin with. Then the fact that no company makes parts for it means that, you know, it's a very expensive rifle to be having and running. Another bad example would be an SVD, purely because it's very front heavy and it's very specialised for sort of long range fire. And those two rifles and sniper rifles are generally made so that you will find some place to hunker down and just start taking people out single shot. Now, that's great and all, but that can lead you to, especially if you don't know the places that you're going to very well, it can lead you to very frustrating times when you're either on the way to some place and then someone sneaks up on you and shoots you, especially if you've only got one of those rifles. You know, so don't get anything too specialised, really. Another bad example would be machine guns, purely because the majority of the ones that are sold are very disappointing to hold. You'll pick them up and you'll realise they're so light, some of them are also quite flimsy as well. You pick them up, shake them, you feel it rattle, and you feel that it just shouldn't be like that. But then the ones that are made to be pretty much one-to-one accuracy with the real thing, they are really heavy, and you probably won't be wanting to carry that around all day, especially if it's your first gun, and then, you know, it's not exactly the best of things to be doing. The sort of quote-unquote best part, the best thing I can say to you if you do buy one of those is, you know, try find a place to hunker down where there's lots of traffic all day. So basically focus on the game plan, focus on the map of the area that you're going to be on, and just hunker down and just start spraying. Shotguns aren't necessarily a bad choice. The only time I would say they were a bad choice is if it's an area that you're going to which has a lot of large open areas where there's automatic fire allowed. In urban style airsoft skirmish sites and all sort of close quarter indoor ones, a shotgun can be your best friend. I mean, I know because I've actually used a spring shotgun in an urban site and it was fun, despite the lack of ammunition and only having one magazine for it. Same with pistols, really. Again, if it's large open area, I definitely would say you should probably go for something like one of these over a pistol. But if you're going for urban or close quarters, a pistol can again be your best friend for your first gun, and pistols generally tend to be around about a third, if not a quarter of the price of these electric guns. Another recommendation for what not to get on your first gun would be either gas or spring. Again, if it's a shotgun, you don't really have much of a choice in the matter with those, and with a pistol, always gas. But in the UK, gas rifles only work on days like today, where it's absolutely sweltering hot out here now. It literally just became hot though. If it's nice, sunny and hot, a gas rifle is perfect. However, if you're in the UK playing Airsoft, you will know, well, if you're in the UK you will know, that this weather is very rare. Most of the time it's murky, it's cold. You're not going to have much fun with a gas rifle because it won't be playing at the top of its game all the time. Granted, you can get certain things that you attach to your magazines and to your gas valve and everything that allows you to basically keep a certain pressure being fired at all times. But most of the time you will find that without that you won't be able to really use those rifles to full effectiveness 90% of the year in the UK. In other countries, if you're watching this, first of all, why? Because this is a UK one, don't worry. In other countries you will find that, especially in warmer countries, that gas rifles are again absolutely brilliant. Gas pistols is a different thing entirely. Gas pistols are great because they are pretty much as close to the real thing as you can get without using bullets. So once you've got a magazine fully loaded and loaded into the gun, it actually works out probably slightly a bit over the weight of the real thing. Now granted, with pistols, again, if it's cold, it won't be working to the best of 100% capability. But another thing is that if you do fire it and the gas is cooled too quickly, you can have the gun malfunction on you. Again, this is with the pistols though. It'll probably be the same with the rifles, I don't know. But recommendation wise, going for a gas pistol at the end of the day it's still great because it's a close quarters sort of deal, really. If you're, say, in the process of reloading your rifle and you've got a pistol, and someone sneaks up on you, you still have the empty magazine in your hand. You can quickly just say put your rifle down to the side, pull out your pistol, and then bang. Of course, you know, chances are you're probably going to get shot before you were able to do that. Or if you're in a firefight and you run out of BBs, or you need to use this wheel here to put more BBs in the capability to be available to fire, you can then pull out your pistol and start firing, and very effective, especially in weather like today. But still, because it's just a quicker action to use than stopping to reload your gun, it's always going to be one of those things where it's always handy to have one around. But that's something we'll talk about on a different day. Anyway, so to summarise, first of all, the legal side of things. If you are thinking of purchasing an airsoft gun, you should begin with going to an airsoft site first, obviously because you want to get used to the sport. Then you want to go for becoming a member and signing up for a place in the UCARA database, and going another 2 times in the next around about 62 days, really. It depends on obviously the length of the month. That is usually the best approach to it in the UK. Then once you are firmly in the UCARA database, you can then buy your guns from any retailer in the UK. Granted, you still have to be over the age of 18. And then best choices, ranked in my opinion top to bottom, would be M4, AK, basically anything that uses M4 parts, then the MP5, then underneath that would be pretty much any automatic rifle that isn't any of these ones above that, also electric. Then below that, specialised in gas. Although somewhere in there is going to be shotguns and pistols as well. Usually probably around the top of the specialised in gas guns. Yeah, that's about it.